Welcome to Know Your Flower. This is a special episode of Sexpertise. Today we're celebrating the power of knowledge by getting to know the vulva and vagina up close and personal. And I mean, really up close and personal with a model and all. So we're going to deep dive into the beauty and complexity and function of one of the most misunderstood parts of the body. Whether you're rocking this anatomy yourself or you just want to be a better informed partner or advocate, then this episode is for you. In a world that often censors, shames, or mislabels this area of the body, knowing your anatomy isn't just educational, it's revolutionary. When you understand your body, you can talk about it clearly, you can advocate for it confidently, and you can care for it with love instead of fear or silence. And that's what we're here to do today, is strip away any type of confusion, reclaim vocabulary, and celebrate body literacy as an act of empowerment. In this episode, I'm going to walk you through the external and internal parts of the vulva and vagina, debunk common myths, and explore why this knowledge is so important for pleasure, safety, and anatomy. And yes, I did bring a special guest. This is my Davondra Vulva Pillow, and I'll be using it as a visual aid every now and then throughout tonight's show. So grab a cup of coffee, tea, whatever your favorite beverage is. I'm sticking with water. Need to hydrate, get comfortable, and let's get started. All right, so vulva versus vagina. What's the difference? Let's clear up one of the most common misunderstandings right away, and that's the word vagina. It's actually not a catch-all term for everything down there, but I feel like most people use it to describe everything. What most people call the vagina is actually the vulva. So this is the vulva. It's the external genitals that you can actually see. The vagina is actually the internal canal that leads to the cervix and uterus. So it's going to be that pink lining in there. That's the internal canal. That's the actual vagina. So think of it this way. The vulva is the visual entrance, and then the vagina is the muscular hallway that's inside. This distinction is really important, not just for anatomical accuracy, but because it influences how we talk about health and pleasure. So misnaming your own body can limit how you express pain, desire, or curiosity. For example, if someone says, "My vagina hurts," but they actually mean their vulva or labia, so here we have the external labia, it may lead to confusion or a misdiagnosis. Naming each part correctly gives you the power and precision in both medical and intimate settings. We don't expect people to confuse elbows with shoulders, right? So the same respect should apply here. That's why today we're using the correct terminology and visuals to help you confidently say, this is my vulva, this is my vagina, and I know the difference. So now we're going to talk specifically about the vulva. So that's the external, what you can see. Now let's take a closer look at that. This includes the labia majora, which is the outer labia. We have the labia minora, which is going to be these smaller inner lips, so to speak. We have the outer and the inner. Then we also have the clitoral hood here, the clitoris, which is going to be this. If you see me kind of looking around, I want to make sure that I get the pillow on camera so that you can see what I am pointing at. But this is going to be the clitoral hood here. It looks like an actual hood. And then this little red gem in here is going to be our visual representation of the clitoris. We also have the urethral and vaginal opening, which are two separate things. So this here is our urethral opening, and then our vaginal opening, which you saw earlier, is going to be this lining in here. All right, so these parts may look dramatically different from person to person, and some labia are large, some are small, some are symmetrical, others are not, but all of them are normal and beautiful. The labia majora is usually the most visible. They're covered in pubic hair and protect the more delicate structures within. The labia minora on the inside might be tucked away or extend beyond the outer labia, and it protects the clitoris and the urethral opening. These folds of skin are sensitive and rich in nerve endings, and they play an important role in sexual pleasure and sensation. Understanding this outer anatomy helps with hygiene, pleasure, and confidence. Many people feel insecure about the way their vulva looks, but just like faces, no two are going to be alike. Vulvas don't need to be tidy or symmetrical. They just need to be respected. Now, let's talk about the clitoral hood. The clitoral hood is a fold of skin that covers the external part of the clitoris, which it's literally like a little hoodie. It serves a protective purpose, shielding the clitoris from constant friction or overstimulation, which can be very uncomfortable. This hood can be gently pulled back to reveal the clitoral glands underneath, especially during arousal when the tissue becomes more exposed. Everyone's clitoral hood is also different. Some are tight, some are more loose, and some may fully or partially cover the clitoris at rest. This variation is natural. The ability to retract the hood may increase with arousal as blood flow engorges the area. This is why foreplay and stimulation matter. The anatomy is responsive, not static. Maybe I should repeat that part. This is why foreplay matters. Knowing where the clitoral hood is helps you understand pleasure anatomy and allows you to engage in more intentional stimulation, either solo or with a partner. It's not just about technique, it's about honoring what feels good, safe, and respectful for the individual. So, once again, there's the hood. Just look at the camera, make sure you can see, and you can pull it back to see the clitoral glands. And that's what I'm referring to when I say, like, during stimulation, as blood flows to this area, it becomes a little easier to pull that back. All right, so the clitoris is the only organ in the human body whose sole function is pleasure. The external glands, what you can see, is often described as a button. And you saw that there with that little red gem. But that visible part is just the tip of the iceberg, believe it or not. This tiny, tiny area is packed with over 8,000 nerve endings, more than any part of the body, making it extremely sensitive to touch, temperature, and arousal. Excuse me, I have allergies still. Just know that I will have allergies during every single episode from here on out, or at least that's what it feels like. For those of you who have been here, who've been watching the last 4 or 5 weeks, this is probably my 5th week. The last 4 weeks we talked about attachment theory and my allergies were awful. At least today I can actually speak to you guys without feeling like I can't like breathe in between words. So that's a little bit better, but my nose is still bothering me. So excuse me for that. Let's get back on topic. But the clitoris is the most commonly stimulated during sexual activity. And for many, this is the main source of orgasmic pleasure, not vaginal penetration. This is why clitoral stimulation is essential to satisfying sex. Yet it's often overlooked in sex ed and in media. And we're here to change that narrative. I mean, that's why I'm talking about it. Understanding clitoral anatomy helps you prioritize pleasure and not just performance. Whether you're exploring solo or with a partner, learning what pressure, rhythm, or movement works for you is part of your sexual empowerment. So, clitoral glans, it's small, but it's mighty. So let's continue to talk about the clitoris, but I want to show you guys something a little different. What most people don't realize is that the clitoris isn't just the little nub at the top of the vulva that I've been showing you. It's actually a much, much larger structure that extends internally. This is actually the full clitoris, which includes two legs called the crura. I may or may not have pronounced that correctly. There's a lot of, even though I've been in this industry, over a decade, there's a lot of words. People pronounce them differently. Like clitoris, I pronounce clitoris. I've heard people say clitoris. So this is called crura to me, C-R-U-R-A. So yes, we are talking about using proper anatomical language. Pronunciation sometimes is a little if, but C-R-U-R-A, that's what these legs are. And they stretch down along the sides of the vaginal canal. So the only thing that is visible is this part here. That is the clitoris that I showed you earlier. So that little nub, this is where that starts, and the rest is internal. So these stretch down along the sides of the vaginal canal, and the two bulbs are vestibular bulbs, and they swell. These swell with blood during arousal. This entire system is like a wishbone that hugs the vaginal opening. This is important because it helps explain why penetration alone doesn't work for everyone and why outer stimulation can still create internal sensations. The clitoral bulbs and the crura, they wrap around the vaginal canal, meaning internal pleasure is often still clitoral pleasure. Once you understand that, the clit versus the G-spot debate becomes a little less confusing, and it's just all connected. So if you've ever thought, why don't I orgasm from penetration? You're not broken. You're just working with real anatomy, not porn myths. So this is the full shape and anatomy, and it hugs the vaginal opening. I mean, this is obviously a much larger model, but just imagine it being inside, all right? And it hugs the entire vaginal opening with the clitoris right here, all right? So just kind of visualize that. This is internal, this is external, all right? And my slides are not moving. There we go. All right, so next up is the urethral opening. So that's going to be this little gem here. Just to give you an idea of 1, 2, 3. So we have the vaginal opening, urethral opening, clitoris. So this little part here, this is a small hole located between the clitoris and the vaginal opening. This is where urine exits the body. It's not connected to the vagina or the reproductive system, although many, many people confuse the two or believe that they're the same. The urethra is its own channel entirely. Why does this matter? First, it's important for basic hygiene and health. Understanding where your pee comes from can help with preventing infections like UTIs, which are common when bacteria enter the urethra, especially during or after sex. Knowing where the urethra is also helps with hygiene practices and makes you more aware of how your body functions. Second, many people are surprised to learn that the urethral area can be erotically sensitive. It shares proximity with the clitoral structure and the G spot area, making it a player in some types of stimulation or arousal. So do not overlook it. So when I talk about proximity, sorry, getting close to the camera. So we have our clitoris. Once again, here's our urethral opening and our vagina. Even though it's its own canal entirely, because it's close to everything that's already sensitive, it does play a part in stimulation or arousal. So you don't have to overlook that. All right. But it's important to know for hygiene practices where it is and the fact that it's not the same as your vaginal opening. And speaking of that, we've arrived to that topic of the vaginal opening, which leads to the internal muscular canal. The opening itself is part of the vulva. So this is our vulva. Once again, might seem repetitive, but I want to make sure you remember. All right. And then this is the actual vagina. The opening itself is part of the vulva and varies in shape and size. Some people have naturally tighter openings. Others may have more elastic. All are normal. This is also the area where penetration, tampon use, childbirth, or insertion of sex toys occurs. That all happens here. The vaginal opening is surrounded by a ring of tissue that is rich in blood flow and can become more sensitive and engorged during arousal. It's also where the hymen tissue used to be. More on that a little bit later. This area responds to both pressure and emotional safety, which is why arousal, comfort, and lubrication are all key to pleasure. Learning to explore the vaginal opening with intention, whether with fingers, a mirror, or toys, can build familiarity and confidence. It's not something that you need to train or stretch for someone else. It's yours to understand on your terms. All right, so I wanted to talk about the hymen, what it is, what it's not. So let's just bust a big myth right here. The hymen is not a seal that breaks during sex, all right? The hymen is a thin membrane that often stretches or wears away through everyday activities. It could be biking, it could be dance, it could be tampon use, sometimes even before puberty. Not everyone bleeds during their first time, and not everyone is born with a pronounced hymen. Virginity it's a social concept. It's not a medical one. There's no scientific way to prove if someone has had sex based on their hymen. That idea is not just inaccurate, but it's dangerous. It has been used to control, shame, and silence people, especially women and girls. So let's let go of the idea of the hymen as proof of anything. Your body is not a site for inspection or ownership. So it may have been, because most of us do not have that thin tissue anymore, but it may have been around this area here. So that's the entrance. All right. And the entrance to the vaginal opening is where that thin membrane would have been. But like I said, it wears away over time, and it could happen prior to puberty during normal activities. All right, so let's talk about the internal anatomy of the vagina. The vagina is a muscular and elastic canal that typically measures 3 to 4 inches at rest, but it expands during arousal, birth, or penetration. I can't really show you much of the inside of this pillow. Um, I do want to show you a little bit though of what this canal looks like. My fingers do fit inside, just to show like the 3 to 4 inches. All right. And there is a little gem under here, which I'm going to try to show you guys. It's kind of hard, but let's see if I can pull that up there. That's considered the G spot there, but that's on the upper vaginal wall. Notice how when I flip this down, you can't see it. The G spot is actually inside on the upper vaginal wall, but we'll talk about that a little bit later too. So it does expand during arousal, birth, or penetration, and it's lined with folds called rugae, R-U-G-A-E. And this allows it to stretch and return to size. The vagina connects the vaginal opening to the cervix, which is the gateway to the uterus. Now, the vagina is completely self-cleaning. You don't need to douche or insert scented products. In fact, doing that can completely disrupt your natural pH balance and cause irritation and infection. A healthy vagina maintains its own ecosystem, complete with good bacteria, lubrication, which change throughout your cycle. Now, during arousal, the vagina undergoes tenting, a process where the upper 2/3 lengthen and expand. This makes space for penetration and it reduces friction. It's a process controlled by hormones, blood flow, and the nervous system, not willpower. All right. So the vaginal opening here. So when it's tenting, it's going to expand in length. It'll no longer be 3 to 4 inches. Now, the G spot. All right, so I already showed you guys where that was. You guys can always rewind when you guys rewatch this episode. But the term G spot refers to an area, not a spot. All right, so that little gem I showed you guys is an area. It's a little spongy area on the front wall of the vagina. And it's just a couple inches inside. All right, as you saw, I didn't have to go in very deep to locate it. This area is often spongy and it'll swell during arousal due to its connection with the internal clitoris and urethral sponge. Some people find this area extremely pleasurable and others actually do not. So the G-spot isn't a button you can press for instant pleasure. Its sensitivity depends on mood, arousal level, and comfort. For many people, firm, consistent stimulation works better than quick jabs or poking. Okay? Take notes. And remember, all pleasure pathways are valid, whether it's clitoral, vaginal, anal, or otherwise. Exploring this area safely and without pressure can open new doors to intimacy. It's okay if it takes time or it doesn't work for you at all. You're not doing it wrong. You're simply listening to your body. All right. So, you know how they always say to do like the come hither motion? Well, now you should understand why, because we have our vaginal opening on that front wall. We have that spongy G-spot right there. So you insert your fingers and you do that come hither motion. And that is the stimulation that works best to find that spongy area. So there you go. There's a tip for you. There's so much that I wish I could add to this episode, but that's why it's 3 episodes long for lack of time. All right, so that's the G-spot. Now let's talk about the anus and the perineum. So that's the space between the vaginal opening and the anus. My pillow doesn't really show that, but that would kind of be like this area here. I don't have a peach. I don't have a diagram, but that's going to be the space between the vaginal opening and the anus. And it's also a sensitive area with lots of nerve endings and can be stimulated gently during sex or massage. The anus, though often overlooked, which doesn't have to be, is part of many people's erotic map and deserves the same respect and safety considerations. These areas are important not only for hygiene, but also for intimacy. Anal and perineal pleasure require extra care. Lubrication, communication, and consent are non-negotiable. All right, those are the three. When it comes to anal play, lubrication, communication, and consent are non-negotiable. Stimulation should be slow and intentional. Rushing can result in discomfort or injury. Understanding this part of anatomy helps reduce shame and gives people more options to explore what's good to them. Your whole body is yours, every part of it. Every part of it. And pleasure isn't limited to just one area. All right, so this area is good too. Let's talk about some common vulva myths, all right? There's so many myths, but we're going to talk about some common ones that get brought up a lot. Myth number 1, all vulvas should look the same. Absolutely not, okay? Labia come in every shape, size, and color. There's no standard for beauty here, all right? Myth number 2, vaginas get loose. How many times have we heard this one, especially for my female identifying folks? False. Vaginas are muscles. All right. So the inside here, this is a muscle. It stretches and then it returns to form. So no, vaginas, if you're a vagina owner, this is false. Not true. Myth number 3. You pee from your vagina. No. As I talked to you earlier, our urethral opening is here. This is our vagina. This is our urethra. All right. This is your urethra. It's a different hole. It's a different system. So these myths are harmful because they fuel body insecurity and misinformation. They create shame, especially in younger people who may feel like something's wrong with their body. And the truth is, your anatomy is normal, functional, and perfect as is. So rejecting these myths allows us to reclaim autonomy. When you know your body, you can spot misinformation a mile away, and that's pretty powerful. All right. We are almost to the end of the episode, and I want to talk about why vulva literacy is revolutionary. Vulva literacy, knowing your own anatomy, isn't just educational. It's also political. It pushes back against centuries of silence, shame, and misinformation. When we reclaim our bodies with knowledge, we shift from being passive participants to empowered advocates. Understanding your anatomy improves your ability to experience pleasure, communicate with partners, and advocate in healthcare settings. We don't mention that part enough. I'm not teaching this to you simply for sexual pleasure, although that is a very important part, but it's also to advocate for yourself in a healthcare setting. You can say, that doesn't feel right, or this isn't what I need, and be taken seriously. That's the kind of sexual wellness that we are here for. So whether you're just learning now or reinforcing what you already know, just know that I'm super proud of you. You're doing something bold, necessary, and loving. All right, so let's wrap up this episode now that you've met your flower. And just an FYI, I normally don't call the vulva or the vagina anything other than what it is, a vulva or vagina. I don't normally call it a flower, but to be completely transparent, we needed a clever title for the episode. But there are a lot of artistic, like exotic flowers out there that look like the vulva and vagina, so I don't mind using that terminology too much. So now that you have met your flower, what surprised you? And what part of this anatomy felt new or empowering to name out loud? What would it be like to name your vulva? Yes, name it, not as a joke, but as an act of reclaiming. Many people give their vulvas a nickname that reflects love or identity. This is honestly the first step in reconnecting with your sensual and sexual self. It's not just about knowing what things are called, it's about feeling proud of what's yours. And vulva literacy is a foundation of sexual wellness, emotional healing, and joyful pleasure. Now, next week, we'll shift our focus to the clitoris, the full internal network, how it lights up during arousal, and how to work with your pleasure blueprint. Until then, love your flower, speak kindly to it, and remember that your body is not a mystery. It's magic, and it's yours. Before I let you go, just want to remind you of how you can contact me. My email, sexpertise@e360tvlive.com. If you ever want to share a story with me having to do with the episode, I love getting personal feedback from you guys, whether you've related or not related to certain topics. We also have Patreon. So Patreon is how I keep this show going. All right. So yes, it is televised on major networks, but we always need your support to keep it going. So for as little as $5 a month, that's the smallest tier on Patreon, I provide behind the scenes looks at how I set up for these episodes. I also send out an intimacy tip sheet at the end of every episode. So even tonight, in about 15 minutes or so, I'll go ahead and release an intimacy tip sheet having to do with today's episode just for my Patreon subscribers. So they get to dig in a little deeper into every episode and kind of talk to me on a more personal level about these topics. We also have our VIP tier where you get discounted sessions with me personally for intimacy coaching. So there's all kinds of little perks to subscribing. So you're more than welcome to do that on Patreon, or you can just give me a follow at the Erica Rivera on any social media platform. All right. So just a little gentle affirmation before I say goodbye. You can say it to yourself. My body is good. My pleasure is sacred. And my voice matters. And my closing screen. Okay. Bye, guys.